fact. Public transportation saves lives, saves money, saves the environment, saves infrastructure for useful purposes like residences, like recreational facilities, like hospitals, like other healthcare facilities. This street here on Washington Boulevard in Culver City was recently reconfigured by the conservative Culver City Council to remove the bike lane and combine it with the bus lane. So this bike waiting area here at the intersection, it's part of the bus lane. So buses get stuck behind cyclists. That's great. The conservative leadership, the majority, Albert Vera, Goran Eriksson, and here comes a fast car. Really important we have wide roads so people can go fast here and cause the death that happened here Friday, 2 days ago. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The conservative leadership got a bunch of complaints, mainly from wealthy white homeowners in the area who are prioritized. Their needs come ahead of everything. The environment, our safety, connected streets, being able to afford to live in the area. And they complain that the bike lane with the bus lane caused congestion because all they see is over their dashboards. They see, well, I'm stuck in traffic here, even though most times of the day it's like this, it's empty. So therefore the congestion is worse. Well, there's congestion and then there's actual congestion. So right now the buses are highly congested because they only run every 15 to 20 minutes at best, like 40 minutes later at night. And that's because pigs like Albert Vera want the police paid really well. The police budget has gone up tens of millions of dollars in Culver City in the last few years. Where his daughter works, by the way. He should mention that every time he talks about police funding, which is frequent, at length, and unbidden. I've been there in person, listened to it. It's interminable listening to him just whine and talk about the police are being vilified, which is a white supremacist talking point. So he's deeply inspired by white supremacists and gives inspiration to them. And of course, the buses serve disproportionately low-income people of color. Black and brown people, immigrants, our elders, people with disabilities, the very young, people who just can't afford cars. And that's who he and his pig buddies are shutting out of Culver City life by making the buses take so long. Now, if white, wealthy executives and homeowners had to wait 15 to 20 minutes at the most frequent in order to move their cars, oh, that wouldn't be acceptable. That would be horrendous because I don't like it. But for bus riders, hey, that's a-okay, because what are you going to do? The bus here is like punishment for being poor. I guess that's Albert Vera's perspective. He certainly doesn't talk about the need to, for instance, pay bus drivers more. Bus drivers are paid $40,000 a year to start in Culver City. The police are paid $70,000 to $85,000 a year to start, so twice as much as the bus drivers. So clearly Albert Vera understands some correlation, some relationship between funding and staffing. And so if you paid bus drivers more, you could hire more. The median rent in Culver City is $3,100 a month, so a little over $3,000 a month. $40,000 a year comes out to a little over $3,000 a month. In other words, bus drivers cannot afford to live in Culver City, and if you live in Culver City, it doesn't make much sense to apply to be a bus driver. You're going to need roommates, you're going to need to live far away, which means you're going to need a car because we don't have reliable public transportation. So that means being a bus driver is a burden on you. Like, you're going to be working long hours, you're going to be working with the public, you're going to be working with heavy machinery in heavy traffic, and because the bus isn't reliable, more people drive. And because the bus lanes here only go 1.6 miles or a little over that, to Albert Vera and his conservative Confederates' credit, they did it. I don't know if they actually completed it yet, but they say they're extending the bus lanes back that way towards Fairfax, I believe. So the buses get their own lanes here, but of course at intersections they have to stop for cars that are turning in front of them. I've been on the bus when that happens, and So as a result, buses get delayed. And then, because so many people drive, because the bus isn't reliable, the buses get stuck in private vehicle traffic throughout the rest of the city. So that's weird. If you're worried about congestion, why aren't all these drivers who are supposedly concerned about getting people moving faster advocating for more bus lanes and better bus driver pay? Oh, no. Yeah, no, we want to get people moving, but not like that. Not like our least favorite type of neighbors, black and brown neighbors, the people who need it the most. We don't give a shit about them. And Albert Vera certainly doesn't give a shit one way or another. He's not a thinking guy. That's not his thing. You tell him this stuff, he'd be like, well, wait, that's not why I'm here. My name isn't Guy that helps people. My name is Albert Vera. So the bike lanes combined with the bus lanes also mean biking is less viable, because now you have to watch for buses behind you. And if they're behind you, you're slowing down the bus. So nobody asked the bus riders, hey, do you want a lane shared with the cyclists? No, but Albert Vera cited a poll of people in Culver City who thought the private vehicle lanes were being congested. So you didn't ask the bus riders. That's interesting. Didn't ask the bus drivers. I doubt he ever set foot on a bus during this whole process, but they can ask wealthy white homeowners and business owners what they think, and phrase the question in such a way to make it amenable towards adding a vehicle lane. Like, they don't ask stuff like, if more people got out of their cars and rode bikes, do you think traffic would be better? Do you think more people would bike if they had bike lanes or bike paths? Extend the sidewalk and make a bike path on there. Drivers are so short-sighted, and we all are in a way. We all think about what we experience before what we can think about, and that's why a lot of people are conservative. They're just run by their feelings. Drivers don't tend to think of bike paths like the Ballona Creek bike path or the Expo bike path as somehow taking up space away from cars, because they don't really see it as part of the road. When it's a bike path, like it's its own infrastructure separate from the street, they don't think of it like that. Even though if they wanted to, they could say, hey, we should have this space claimed for cars. So a way to get around this utter foolishness of drivers, this short-sightedness, is just extend the sidewalk and put lanes for cyclists on there. And then they won't think of it as taking up infrastructure for private vehicles. They'll think of it as like, oh, that's separate. That's for the like the sidewalk. That's for the pedestrians. That's how easily, like, their minds, you can short wire their minds to get them to support cycle infrastructure. I think I heard about 10,000 people a day ride the bus. They're not 10,000 people a day. There are 10,000 trips made in Culver City a day on the bus. Why do drivers think that is? Why do conservatives explain that? Why do you think that is? Well, it's because to the extent that the bus is viable, people ride it. So would those 10,000 trips be better made if they were done by car? Do you think this road here has room for 10,000 more vehicles? No. But of course, conservatives, they're not the thinking types. If they were, they'd stop being conservative like I did. I used to be a staunch conservative, and I refused to take public transportation, and I looked at Metro as like just a toy to hand out to people, like a plaything for the government to like just frivolously spend money. And I hadn't thought about it at all. So conservatives, I get you, man. I got you, bros. And it is mostly bros, but it's a lot of gals as well. So if you want another 10,000 trips to be made by people getting out of their cars and getting onto buses, you need the buses to be more reliable, more frequent. Oh, no. Conservatives don't want to talk about that. They don't want to deal with that. If you want people to drive more safely, you need more narrow roads with more complexity. Tree-lined streets, you need architecture like chicanes or potted plants or roundabouts. Even though those are not strictly traffic calming, those actually help get more traffic flowing, but get it flowing safely if they're implemented well. So we have all these tools that could have prevented the death that happened here. In other words, if that driver that was in the collision with the motorcyclist, whatever happened, I don't know the specifics of the crash, but it doesn't matter when we know we're outliers as far as traffic deaths, because other cities and other streets and other countries are significantly less dangerous and have way less traffic deaths and have way less crashes. And the crashes that do happen are much less deadly because people are driving more slowly. They understand to share the road with everyone, that cars are a guest there in many places of the world. They're not exclusively for drivers. So drivers just like knuckleheads, like Neanderthals, saying roads are for cars. Well, let's look at roads everywhere and see how they work when it's just for cars. You could look at, Delhi, where there's like 80 million cars, and you can only drive if your license plate is like an odd or an even number certain days or certain times of day, because you can't make enough room for all the cars that are there. And here, there would not be enough room. There isn't enough room as it is on the streets for everyone to be able to get around in a car. Never mind how classist and racist it is to expect people to pay $10,000 a year, overpriced, over-engineered pieces of junk, money that goes to car dealers and auto executives who are heavily subsidized by the government, the oil industry. Drivers, you're not paying full price for gas and oil. The oil industry is subsidized something like $700 billion a year by the government. If you want to foot that bill, go ahead, do it yourself. Stop relying on these welfare handouts. You entitled bums. You want your little goodie projects for free. You do not pay the price that it costs to build and maintain these roads. They are heavily subsidized by, the people you hate the most, people living in inner cities, because the tax base is much more dense there. The cost of running utilities there is much lower. And it's like per capita, more taxes get generated there than in the suburbs, where you have single family homes that draw a lot, it costs a lot more to run utilities out there to each one, as opposed to, say, like heating or running water to an apartment building, trash pickup there, etc. Street maintenance, like you're servicing an area that has so many more people in a denser area. But the racist, wealthy whites wanted to move out here in Culver City. It was a sundown town where black and brown people and Jews couldn't buy homes. And they wanted to get away from the inner cities. And they want mommy taxpayer and daddy government to give them their little suites for them and pay for all this. The free street parking that people take advantage of, that's not free. That costs a significant amount. I've seen one cost estimate at $50,000 per parking spot. I don't know if that's over a lifetime, like what exactly that is, if that's just over the course of a year. But I can believe the number's pretty high. Like, unless you want to build your own parking spot and tell me, hey, no, it's actually pretty cheap to do, and have it on the street where people are constantly parking on it, go ahead. I'm not talking about just like how you would do your driveway. I mean, like, do it like to road specifications. So, conservatives, again, just thoughtless. So, back to this crash that happened here. How could it be prevented? Conservatives only want to see what's right in front of them. So, they don't want to see how this road infrastructure has taken away so much of the city from being used like productively. They don't want to see how much this all costs. They don't want to see the cost on our lives in wasted time spent waiting in traffic. The cost to our environment. LA and Culver City is a city within the LA County, has some of the highest childhood asthma rates in the country, if not the highest. And you can look more specifically where people are living and kids are going to school by freeways, which add to our congestion. They don't alleviate it. Where childhood asthma is higher, respiratory disease is higher. We have plenty of decades, over a century of evidence that emissions are causing global warming, that it's an environmental catastrophe, a climate catastrophe. We know car crashes are deadly. 42,000 Americans, or not all Americans, but 42,000 people a year in America are killed in car crashes. I know conservatives don't care about that. They just say, oh, you're just trying to scare me with numbers. Don't use numbers to manipulate me. I don't care about numbers. They don't care that all these emissions get into our water supply, especially the microplastics from tires, that the emissions cause lung cancer, neurological disease, cardiovascular disease. By the way, a lot of you drivers, you're disgusting pigs. Like, you wait in line in your cars for fast food, going around the block, spewing more emissions, spending more money so you can have some tasty snacks. Dude, get in shape, man. Eat right. You want to control everybody else with your free welfare projects, but you can't even control what you eat. Come on. Be serious. And we're not getting around faster. We're actually losing thousands of hours a year due to congestion. Apparently conservatives don't give a damn about the first responders, the police, who have to share the roads in this traffic. They say they support the police. They don't. Trust me, they can't stand the police. They really hate the police because the police have to share the roads with deadly drivers, and police sometimes are the deadly drivers. And police die in car and motorcycle crashes. You can look up police and car and motorcycle, motorcycle cop deaths in Southern California to see that. There was the police officer who was killed on his bike, murdered by two kids who stole a car. So, great system we have with cars. The police chief here said the majority of criminals or criminal suspects they deal with are coming in through cars. So these drivers are criminals. So we have to ask, who's radicalizing these drivers? If drivers are against crime, why don't the moderate drivers speak out against this? If they're really against it, why don't they? They don't. They don't want to change the system. They just want to be comfortable. They don't want to alter anything fundamentally that's going to challenge the idea that whiteness and money make you superior to someone else. And how do we get money, and how do we define whiteness? On our own terms, and it's screw you, I got mine. That's their attitude. So there are so many ways the death at this intersection could have been prevented if we had bus lanes going throughout the city with buses running every 5 to 10 minutes, if we had bike lanes and bike paths going throughout the city and bike parking, if this intersection was made smaller, if the vehicle traffic was made one lane instead of two, and you have this slip lane here, so that means cars can go faster through there as opposed to having to stop with a curb extension and look for people and cyclists. We've robbed people with certain types of disabilities from being able to be mobile in the city, because so many of them are lower income and have to rely on public transportation to get around, but public transportation can't be relied on as much as it should be. So if you're against killing people in the street, if you would rather people get around safely on streetcars and metro and buses, and people who are not safe to drive don't drive, people who are too tired to be driving don't have to drive, they can just say, I'm going to take the bus or take the train. People who, due to age, shouldn't be driving, like my dad who crashed multiple cars, like because they don't have viable means of getting around in any other way. Like, if you want that, like, you could advocate for more safe streets. That triggers the hell out of conservatives, though, because you'd have to start thinking beyond what you experience looking over your dashboard at the road. And I know you don't like that, and I'm sorry for offending you. It's obvious that criticizing conservatives over traffic safety is more upsetting for them than 42,000 people a year in America dying because of their neglect of traffic safety. So good job. I applaud your freedom of speech and advocating for the deaths of Americans, even though I don't support that myself. That's your freedom of speech, and I applaud you for your courage in expressing such unpopular views. Certainly not how I was raised. I was taught to respect Americans. But you all can trash Americans if you want. If you're in the hate America crowd, perfectly free to do that. My dad, who's a 25-year Air Force veteran, obviously you don't respect the troops, because a guy like him shouldn't have had to drive. He should have been able to take the bus or metro to get around. So you don't respect the troops, you don't respect the flag, you're triggered so much by the cause of the troops and the police, which is to keep people safe here. Again, using the conservatives' terms. I mean, the reality, you can look at the record of the troops and the generals and the police and see for yourself how that goes. But I'm assuming you're not the thinkers, like you're not the type to go investigating that kind of thing. So just on your own terms, those people have a cause of protecting life here, and yet you don't want to protect life. You engineer the circumstances to get someone killed right here, as happened here. That person should be alive right now. They should be enjoying their life. And instead you say, no, just look at the responsibility of the driver. Well, look at your own personal responsibility. In your silence, you are testifying that, hey, traffic deaths are fine. This road configuration, fine. All this wasted infrastructure, we don't need it. We don't need to save any money on this. Conservatives love to whine when it's useful, when it's like a sick punchline to a dirty joke that money is going to immigrants instead of our veterans, homeless veterans. But you all hate homeless veterans. You all absolutely hate them. You hate homeless people. You don't think of homeless people as human. And if this doesn't apply to you, then I'm not talking to you. So don't worry about it. But I get it. When I was a conservative, I was a triggered little butthurt cuck, cucking myself and my own humanity and dignity to be subservient, a bootlicker for the landlord lobby, the auto industry, the oil industry. Man, I get it. I'm right there with you guys, at least in my memories as a conservative. This deadly crash wouldn't have happened if that driver was on the bus. I don't begrudge a motorcycle or a cycle rider riding a bike, because those are awesome. And those are so much more space efficient than cars. They're more cost efficient. They use less gas. People should be able to ride a motorcycle safely. And I want to challenge a popular view among a lot of people, just because they're stupid and they watch movies where motorcycle riders are the bad guys and they think that's like a documentary. I want to challenge that notion and confront them with this uncomfortable thought that actually you're wrong. A lot of motorcycle riders, basically they're like anyone else. They try and drive safe mostly. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they take shortcuts. That's like everybody. Think about all the people driving who drive too aggressively, who drive impatiently, who tailgate, who are looking at their cell phone, who are eating, putting on makeup, reading, posting on social media, are drunk, are high, are arguing with someone. All those people don't need to be driving. If they'd rather be doing something else, they don't have to be driving. They could be taking a bus or streetcar or metro or riding a bike where you can just stop anywhere and it's easy to do that and you're not going to block traffic. As opposed to when I see drivers on here so often, they're holding up a green light because they're looking down at their phones. And also for some reason, drivers leave like 40 feet of space in front of them, stopped at a red light. The argument that they're leaving space in case they're hit from behind is bogus. When there's cars right behind them, those cars cannot accelerate fast enough to crash into them to make them, like, they can crash into them, but they won't make them go like 30 feet into the car in front of them. So drivers, if you don't like traffic, guess what? You don't like drivers. You don't like you. You're traffic. Who's traffic? All these drivers all of a sudden act like they're in solidarity with each other. Like, yeah, we need more drivers to drive our way out of bad traffic. But you're all the ones who don't like traffic. Well, what do you think you all are to each other? You're all competition on the road. You're all the other drivers that make our insurance costs higher, that cause so many millions of dollars in medical bills and deaths and injuries and maimings, in trauma, and people being sent to the hospital. This could be saved if, we could save ourselves this trouble if you want. And if I'm not describing you, hey, don't be so triggered by it. Come on board, turn in your hate card and say, okay, I want safe streets too. I think we deserve them. I think we deserve way better than what we have. That it's fully possible, that pedestrians don't have to be confined to this little strip of pavement on the side of the road. And this is relatively wide for Southern California and in much of the country. And we don't have to give over our cities to these $10,000 a year steel coffins, overpriced, over-engineered, the money mainly going to the executives and lobbyists for these industries. And we can stop buying into this idea that that purchasing a car that other people made, other people designed, that's made out of a lot of cheap, flimsy crap, cheap injectable molds, plastics. They're not made with like cast iron and and as much steel and other metals as they used to be. We can stop buying into this idea that having one of these objects is like an extension of your personality. It can be if you want it to be. I respect a well-made car. I think it's a beautiful thing. Cars can be great for leisure trips, for just getting around places that transit does not provide access to, that even in an ideal transit system, world class, it can be impractical. A train cannot reach every home. There has to be first and last mile mobility, although we need to amp that up with pedestrian walkways and denser housing around transit hubs and buses. But even then, cars can be great for certain things. They can be great for spontaneous trips, for deliveries, for road trips. But the important thing to take away is they're great if you want them. They're not great if you have to have them to get around, if they're essentially a burden on you. And if you need a car to get to work, and you need to work to afford your car, and if you need a second job to keep paying your bills, because you're paying tens of thousands of dollars, as I did for cars over the 12 years or so that I owned them, and you need to move further away from where you work because you can't afford to live closer. And if the cost of living is going up, why? Because all this parking, all this space given over to cars, we don't have enough affordable housing. You have to pay. Buildings pay for all this extra parking, for the wider streets. We're all paying for the wider streets. It's legally mandated. Streets have to be a certain width. Even in residential areas where they don't need to be that wide, where all it does is make speeding much easier and make crashes much deadlier and more frequent. And it makes it more hostile to pedestrians. It makes it harder and less pleasant to walk around your neighborhood, to be connected to people, to bike, to skateboard, to rollerblade. It makes it harder for people to walk their pets, for parents to walk their kids. So think about it. Do you like that? And who do you want to be? And do you like that we've just contributed another death here to the 42,000 a year in America? We're outliers in this. You can just look up. If you're triggered by this, if you're butthurt, look up. Go ahead, prove me wrong. So I'm going to prove Angela wrong. I'm going to look up what they do in Japan. I bet all 43 million people in the greater Tokyo area just drive cars, right? That's what they do. And the trains are there for show. You can look it up and see. You can look up what they do in Germany, in England, in France, in Spain, even in Italy, although there's a lot of bad traffic there. In many areas in South America, in Mexico City, in Singapore, in China, where they have lots of rail networks. Nowhere is perfect. They still have problems too. But here in LA, Metro announced that recently Metro rider trips surpassed 1 million a day. That's getting close to pre-pandemic levels. Would we be better off if those million trips were made by car instead of on train? On trains and buses. I don't want to just talk like I'm in the ears of those people there. That's great. The car is speeding. He's just hitting the gas hard. And that's what empty streets are amenable to, is if the street architecture shows you that it's safe to drive fast because you have a long straight path, people will want to drive fast. And then you'll have deadly crashes that happen right next to where these people are walking and right by where I'm standing. By the way, you want to see great architecture? The beg button here has these bolts on the bottom, you see? These are here because if a car crashes into it, the designers of this want the pole to be able to break free so it doesn't destroy the car, and really, it's not even the car, it's the person inside, so they don't come to a stop suddenly and their insides get liquefied. But where are you supposed to stand when you press this button? Yeah. This should not be designed like this so that you're in the way of where cars are expected to crash. You're a lot more fragile, me, here I am, here's my body, than this. And this can be replaced. You cannot. So much for the conservative pro-life argument. They're the pro-death, pro-oil, gas pro-car and movement. They're not pro-life. They're ready to sacrifice people's lives in the name of this. 3 cars stuck at a light when this is a waste of space. It's a waste of money. If buses ran frequently, you could take the bus. You could walk. If housing was dense enough and our neighborhoods were dense enough. So I'm going to get walking here. I'm hungry. God damn it, I'm hungry. More evidence of the crash. So think about that. How can we avoid deaths? Well, people who shouldn't be driving don't need to be driving if we have robust transit. If we had bike lanes going all over LA, let alone Culver City, then biking would be a lot more viable all over the city. If we subsidized bikes and public transportation the way we do the oil industry and freeways, we could get bikes and public transportation to a lot more people. If we had bike parking the way we prioritize parking in so much of the city, we've given away so much of the region to cars for parking, and so much money, so many hours wasted looking for parking, so much in resources for parking that could be used more productively. If we took that and instead used it for bike parking, you can park like a dozen bikes in the space you park 1 car. We could have such a healthier, happier, more well-connected, joyous city, and people could be alive right now that instead we're killed. So it takes some new understanding of your environment. It takes looking at how cities are designed, how the Netherlands and Amsterdam became so bike friendly and transit friendly. They were not always this way. They were car oriented, and parents there started a campaign when their kids were dying due to traffic crashes, saying stop killing our kids. And in the 70s they helped transform the Netherlands into being more bike friendly. So the argument that that North America is not like the Netherlands, we can't do what they do because we're not them. Like, they weren't like them. They changed because they care. Do you care? Then speak up. You don't have to ever get out of your car to want more transit and more bike lanes and better housing policy and less parking, because then other people get out of their cars who shouldn't be driving. People like me who just didn't need to drive. I was driving for like 10, 12 years. Or would you prefer if the 1,000,000 trips on Metro a day were made by car instead? It's up to you. But if you want another 1,000,000 and another 1,000,000 and more millions of trips to be made by Metro instead of car, speak up. Run those little yappity yaps and those greasy cheeseburger grubbing fingers of yours, stuffed with disgusting hormones and antibiotics, to not that I'm a vegetarian, but I think that's another whole problem. Our food industry, farming, and corporate farming and corporate grocery system. Take those greasy little fingers of yours and type out messages to your leaders, to your friends, about the need for transit, the need for bike infrastructure, so we don't have people waiting like this for the bus in indignity when we have all this space dedicated to cars that isn't being used now. And buses and trains and bikes are so much more efficient in getting people around. You can get millions more people around by buses, bikes, and trains than you can in cars. There simply is not enough space in LA for everyone to get around by car. So think about it. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Bye.